Greetings, truth seekers. Whether you are here for the first time or a returning seeker, I will do my best to entertain you and to reveal truths as I see and understand them. I have said before that the truth is like a shape-shifting trickster god. As some truths are destroyed, new truths are found, such as the idea of a flat earth. When that came to be known as rubbish, a new truth was brought into being, a spherical earth. And since man has been circumventing the globe, traveled to space, this new truth is holding up over the original. So many people today are afraid of learning new truths. It is uncomfortable to be wrong. And when you are very wrong, it is very uncomfortable. I will give you an exit from any shame or pain you may encounter if this turns out to be you. If what you believe is wrong, but the reason you believe the wrong is due to faulty or outright intentional lies regarding the information you have been spoon-fed since birth, you are off the hook. I will give you a warning though. Once you know the truth, you are no longer ignorant, and then you become responsible for what you choose to believe or the manner in which you may act. And concerning the storyline here over the compatibility of Christianity and fascism, there are going to be some very uncomfortable truths revealed. At the point of learning this truth, and if the reader making this discovery is learning for the first time how close they resemble each other, one may be inclined to deny the truth. If this is you, I will be the first to encourage you to take a pause, ponder on what you have heard here, and I do mean give it some time to mull around in that cranium of yours for a spell before you deny. And if, after pondering on this with your own understanding and what you actually can see happening around you, search a bit further to see if what I reveal today has any merit. For I assure you there is much more evidence out there than what I will show you here. Which logic would dictate, if more evidence is available in favor of my position, then the truths you learn here today will only become ever more truthful. In other words, much like when the flat earth theory was destroyed by the new truth and the new truth holds up, so too should my assertions made here hold up to scrutiny. What I find most disturbing about what I'm going to reveal here today is not the information I share with you, but the fact that this has been hidden so well by major media outlets and government. At some point, I will reveal how the Catholic Church actually assisted in the escape of thousands of former Nazi leadership from Germany. And that is a well-known fact, my friends. In my book, Land of the Free, Home of the Brave, and Other BS, I dedicate an entire chapter to what is called corporatism. This is simply another way of saying fascist. It was the Italian dictator and tyrant Benito Mussolini that made the first use of the comparison between fascism and corporatism. And in my book, I give many examples as to how the United States is operating under a form of government that is actually a hybrid of many forms, but the one dominating the scene is certainly fascism. Without shame or apology, I declared the U.S. a fascist country, then gave one set of proofs after another to back up my statement. Allow me to establish the facts as we understand them today, and are verified by outside sources. Places like the Pew Research Center that proclaim, according to their information, the Christian population in the United States accounts for 70.6% of the total population. Being that we have become a democracy over a republic, with central power being the focus of the country rather than states' rights, the mob rules. The mob in this case consists of Christians. It can be an easily established fact that Christians run the nation. When I did the research for my book, at that time, the GOP portion of the House consisted of 100% Christians and Jews. The House of the Democratic Party consisted of around 70% of the Christians and Jews. Just so we know who is running the country as we move forward, because much of what we will examine in the way of fascist Christians has to do with the manner in which they govern and apply law. I will first establish this truth, that a fascist form of government could not exist without the consent of Christians. And in expounding on this truth, Christians would not approve of the use of fascist methods of governing if they did not agree with the philosophy of fascism. and it is only after close scrutiny of the scriptures that it will be revealed to those that are able to see through the lies that the foundation of the church is built on a fascist platform. As we move forward and look closer at this, you too will come to see it. And just like when the discovery of a spherical Earth opened up the exploration due to the fear of sailors being diminished, nobody wants to fall off the edge of the earth. It is the hope of this author that you will begin to explore for yourself those truths evident and in front of you. I will start with providing the reader with where the information came from that was used in my book, at least in part, and will be used here as well. The website is radical.org, and the man from which they drew their information is Dr. Lawrence Britt. And this man established the 14 tenets of fascism. He studied the countries of Germany, Italy, Spain, Chile, and Indonesia, countries that were fascist at the time or had been. And he broke it down to the 14 common themes among them. For you see, not all were exactly the same. It was these 14 traits that they all shared that the doctor determined were needed to declare a fascist country. The first of these tenets is a powerful and continuous nationalism, the use of patriotic symbols and songs. The nation's flag is highly honored and is seen everywhere. This first tenet screams of America. In some towns or neighborhoods, it is as if they are trying to out-American each other. It is, in my experience, the so-called conservative or radical Christians can claim victory here. It is not uncommon where I live to see the American flag on one side of the front steps and a Christian flag on the other side. The next tenet is a bit more disturbing, but so accurate as to be the exclamation point to my statement. That tenet is the disdain for the recognition of human rights. Because of a fear of enemies, people tend to look the other way when human rights are being violated, even approving of torture and long-term prison sentences when not warranted, as well as assassinations being okay as a means to an end. This is so quintessential American. The means justify the end, no matter the means. Even dropping a nuclear weapon on innocent women and children, such is the lie we were told that this was needed to end World War II. In 1 year of the Iraq War, 29,000 civilians died. In 1 year, folks. Nearly 2/3 of Americans believe that torture is an acceptable means of extracting information from suspected terrorists. Only 15% of Americans polled for this said torture should never be used, and that's according to Reuters, comamproject.org. I do hope that those are the church grannies. Let's face it, or all is lost. Do you want to see another American signature move? The third tenet of fascism, as defined by Dr. Lawrence, is using enemies as scapegoats, with the current administration blaming everything from inflation to high gas prices on the bullshit conflict in Ukraine caused by the eternal enemy, Russia. You don't have to go any further than that. These scapegoats are a rallying cry for patriots, and none is more patriotic than a devout believer in Christ, working into a frenzy to eliminate the threat. And you can insert any threat in here, foreign or domestic, it will work just fine to stoke fear. This is why there is never any problem getting billions approved in days to send our youth off to die and conduct state-sanctioned murder. But to get money to actually help American citizens is always in short supply. And according to many politicians, a waste of money. The fourth tenet of fascism is another that seems to fit so perfectly into the American experience as to be written just for us. And that, my friends, is the supremacy of the military. The military is given a disproportionate amount of the national budget. Soldiers in the military are glorified. All you must do is learn that we spend more than the top 20 countries combined in military spending to realize the truth to this statement. And yet, there are always cries for a bigger military, more ships, more planes. Military contractors love this. Must feed the industrial military complex. And while the military and soldiers are glorified, this is only to bring in fresh cannon fodder. There really is no love for them, only what they do. The fifth tenet of fascism is rampant sexism. Opposition to abortion is high, as is homophobia, anti-gay legislation, and policies related. A male-dominated society in which gender roles are very rigid. Oh my goodness. One could have taken that right out of the good book. A patriarchal society has been in place since the days of old. And they come straight out of that old contract of the good book from antiquity and bleeding right into the new contract, what many of you call Testament, and has remained a staple for governing in this country for several hundred years. The hatred for homosexuals is so clearly defined in the Bible that no amount of denial on the part of Christians can make it go away. And given the fact that only recently has any laws been passed to bring these people into the fold of society, is evident to support this. But wait, there's more. In several states over the last couple of years, there have been laws passed of a religious, say, Christian nature to enable state-sanctioned bigotry against homosexuals to resume. In the sixth tenet, we shall look into what is the controlled mass media. This involves censorship as well as use in the mainstream media for what is called public affairs information, which is a nice way of saying propaganda. If you want to see how that really plays out, get the book, Land of the Free, Home of the Brave, and Other BS. The seventh tenet of fascism is an obsession with national security. Fear is used as a motivational tool against the people, and there is not another nation on earth more fearful than ours. It was a bullshit line about weapons of mass destruction that landed us in the conflict with Iraq. Do you remember? How many did they find? None, you say, and yet it was brushed off by a complacent media, and the apathetic sheeple bleated their way to work each day to help pay for the weapons and carnage that occurred there. Did I mention that 29,000 Iraqi civilians died in 1 year? The means justifies the end. I get it. And very possibly, this is one of my favorite tenets discovered in the research. The eighth tenet is religion and government are intertwined, something we're seeing even more of today. Government uses the common religion to manipulate the public opinion. Religious rhetoric is used, even when the activity is directly opposed to the tenets of that religion. A good example of this is the attachment radical or evangelical Christians have with President Donald Trump, or shall we call him Donald Jesus Trump. Anything he does or did is swallowed whole by the congregation of believers because he sold himself as one of you. All he had to do was promise fidelity to the traditional values of the church, and they began to worship him at once. Never mind, he didn't actually believe or act in a manner that verified this. Or did he? We're going to visit another book that I absolutely adore, and it's a book called The Cause of Hitler's Germany. This is found in the chapter titled Hitler's War Against Reason, and it's written by a man named Leonard Peikoff. I'll read from page 62. Dogma, whether Nazi or otherwise, requires an authority able to give the stamp of an official imprimatur. The Nazi authority is obvious. Just as the Roman Catholic considers the Pope infallible in all matters concerning religion and morals, that's morals, writes Goring, so do we National Socialists believe with the same inner conviction that for us the leader is in all political and other matters concerning the national and social interests of the people simply infallible. Hitler's authority derives from something mystical, inexpressible, almost incomprehensible, which this unique man possesses, and he who cannot feel it instinctively will not be able to grasp it at all. And I would say that that is an absolute echo of what we have today. So I'm going to go to, okay, here we go. I'm going to stay with the script here. So getting back on subject, when the common religion of the country is Christianity, the brainwashing has begun as soon as the poor sap exits the wound. The commands to submit to authorities, that includes the church, are so ingrained into the psyche of the young man or woman that by the time they finish the advanced course in submission, that being carried out by the government-run factory schools, the mind of the individual is no longer even under the control of the individual. It makes it very easy to line up the troops for inspection. Nobody will disobey because we have this thing called prison for them. In Germany, it was the camps. Now, this idiocy that many of you may find difficult to even comprehend is also a major theme amongst fascists, and certainly in Germany. Page 70 of The Cause of Hitler's Germany. One cannot seriously oppose a doctrine or an order except by reference to facts that one has observed and grasped. Qua dogmatist. The Nazi is eager to brush aside such facts in favor of faith in the supernatural, as revealed to and by the Führer. Qua pragmatist. The Nazi denies facts, any facts on principle, substituting social utility as his guide to truth. Such utility to be determined by the embodiment and voice of society, the Führer. In both capacities, the Nazi is philosophically primed to hear and heed the same message. The one message the party leadership addressed urgently to every mind within range. The message expressed by Goebbels as follows: hear nothing that we do not wish you to hear. See nothing that we do not wish you to see. Believe nothing that we do not wish you to believe. And think nothing that we do not wish you to think. Wow, that kind of sounds like the sheeple of today in America, does it not? The ninth tenet is that corporate power is protected. I will not expound on this other than to say that corporations are the first-class citizens in this country, while the rest of us are just plebes at different levels of society, whose biggest function is to serve the church, state, and corporations. The 10th tenet is that labor power is suppressed. I will only give a short opinion on this as well. The most Christian segment of America is in the South or Southeast. It was this segment of the country that companies fled to from highly unionized states, because the people of those highly religious states hated unions and kept them out. This resulted in the gutting of union employees in other states, who then passed right-to-work laws with the help of the church. Somehow unions are anti-Christian, you see, because of the Christian value system. Scary, huh? Well, how about this? In a recent poll by Pew Research Center showed that 62% of evangelical Christian Republicans, those I like to call radicals, would like to declare the United States a Christian nation. This would be a mirror of Israel's claim of a Jewish nation. And with that, they made a state law that only Jews have the right to self-determination. Isn't that good to know? The 11th tenet is disdain for intellectuals in the arts. Both of these are considered dominated by liberals and freaks by Christians. The arts are always one of the first programs cut at our schools, keeping those really beneficial things like sports before arts. Art has been perceived by many as effeminate, not fitting into the male-dominated society with real manly qualities. This is both Christian and fascist in nature. This 12th tenet is so American as to define us as a nation. The obsession with crime and punishment. With the police given almost limitless power, people tend to look the other way when abuse occurs. If you find yourself in the camp of pariahs, the excommunicated from the church, you can expect even less mercy from the courts or the good people that make up the majority of Americans. Americans make up about 4% of the world population, but have 20% of all people incarcerated worldwide. Chew on that a minute, would you? Think about it. In a free nation, we incarcerate more people than anybody else on the planet. Many of the laws that cause people to be locked up are what I refer to as morality laws. In other words, the laws of the church, or commands found in the Bible, dictate to all of us how we are to live. This is blatant abuse of the separation of church and state, a hoax, if you will, that has been pulled off due to the high population of sheeple in America. I will refrain from going on here about this to keep all of this to a reasonable length, but there is so much more to cover on this subject alone. The last two tenets of fascism are cronyism and fraudulent elections. And to cronyism, there is no shortage of stories that show this to be alive and well in this country. With those attached to corporate America, legislators and the wealthy living under one set of laws, while we plebes are bludgeoned to death by these same people for doing what they do, in many cases only due to the arrangement of some words on a piece of paper. And while I do not believe that we have had any fraudulent elections of consequence in quite some time, millions in this country are still infected with the lies of a madman proclaiming such. As a matter of fact, this madman set the stage during his first run for office. He started his campaign out with the statement that it was all rigged and he wasn't supposed to win. Just in case he didn't win, he could stand on that claim. Not that he wasn't good enough. Prior to the 2020 campaign, he said that you would have to be the worst politician in history if one lost to Joe Biden. Same plan, except now he will be an embarrassment in the history books, and that is too much for his inflated ego to withstand. Now, I'm going to go to the words of another man, and I'm going to tell you what Adolf Hitler said. So, a lot of you probably don't know this. Hitler was a great admirer of the church. Not the message, but its methods. And in this, in a doctrine that was found between Adolf Hitler and one of his right-hand men, Rauschning, he says, this is Adolf Hitler, "I have followed the church," Hitler told Rauschning, "in giving our party program the character of unalterable finality like the creed. The church has never allowed the creed to be interfered with. It is 1,500 years since it was formulated. Every suggestion for its amendment, every logical criticism or attack on it has been rejected. The church has realized that anything and everything can be built upon a document of that sort, no matter how contradictory or reconcilable with it. The faithful will swallow it whole, so long as logical reason is never allowed to be brought to bear upon it." Kind of sounds like the situation we see before us today, does it not? Here is another one. This is a different fellow speaking, but it comes out of the same book, page 66 on this one. And this is Benito Mussolini. I'm sure anybody that's even half-assed good with history will remember this guy. "We have created our myth," states Mussolini. "The myth is a faith. It is a passion. Our myth is the nation. Our myth is the greatness of the nation. Ours," writes Rosenberg in his best-known book, The Myth of the 20th Century, "is the myth of the blood, the belief that it is by the blood that the divine mission of man is to be defended." And that, all of you listening, is what we have before us today. The blind acceptance of this bullshit is a direct result of people bowing their heads in obedience to other lines of bullshit since birth. Flat Earth? Sun rotates around the Earth? Anybody? All I ask the reader to do after hearing this is to observe with your own eyes what you see and with your ears what you hear, the actions conducted by this state and the nation as a whole. Then, if you have the intelligence to decipher without the help of CNN or Fox News what is going on, tell yourself this is not a fascist nation run by a majority that proclaim they are for peace and love and forgiveness, conducting itself in complete opposition to what the claim is. It really is time to send everyone home and take down the circus tents. Once you come to know the truth and spread it around, the show is over for the imposters. Thank you very much for listening. I am Seamus Pendragon. Have a great day.